Hey guys, what is going on? My name is Dabe, and as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about something in this one, and that thing is Revs. So I'm going to try and keep this video fairly short. I hopefully won't go over 10 minutes with it, but I'll just kind of bring to light some things that you guys might not know about. So if you don't have a Twitter, or you don't have Reddit, because I don't know if it's made its way to Reddit yet, maybe it has. I don't really use Reddit personally. It has actually come to light that doing Revs, killing the actual NPCs at Revs, well skulled, gives you a better chance at loot, a substantially better chance at loot, actually. So first thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen for you guys, the confirmation of what it is. Alright, so right now on your screen, you're probably looking at this and you're like, what is this? This is too much for me to process. So right now we're just going to ignore the top half. It doesn't matter. This is formulas, but we'll get to it in a second. So on the bottom right, you can see the chances of the mediocre drops. Now we're not really too concerned with that. The bottom left is the unique table. And the relevance to this is actually very, very high, because as you can see right at the top, it tells you it's an equal chance to roll anything on this table, 0 to 39. So a 0 would give you a chance to get any of these particular weapons, and then a chance to get the amulet as well, which is, you know, twice the rarity, which is interesting because that amulet's useless. But the important thing is, when you are skulled, you cannot roll over a 13. So what this means is basically 2 of the chances for the Ancient Crystal, since Ancient Crystal is 13 to 15, and everything else below that, so the 1 mil totem and the 500k totem, and all the chances for the D-meds, you cannot hit well skulled. Which means you are way, way, way more likely, actually 3 times as likely, to be receiving a drop well skulled. And we've all kind of joked about it, saying like, oh, it's weird, it seems like you actually get more loot when you're skulled. And PK clans have made jokes about it, and everybody thought that it wasn't a real thing. But apparently this was also a thing pre-EOC. I didn't know about that because I didn't really play much pre-EOC. I did, but I wasn't in this stage of the game. So it kind of makes sense that a lot of players who didn't play back then wouldn't have known this information. But on screen now, I'm going to put something else that you guys can look at. This is a bit more relevant. It's easier to understand than the formulas. So as you can see, the Dragon and the Knight have actually an insane chance of getting a skulled, like a chance of getting a weapon or necklace when you're skulled. So that's 1 in 2,800 chance. And that might seem still pretty rare. And in the grand scheme of things, 1 in 2,800 is a pretty rare drop rate. But when you consider the regular drops you're getting, and that's just the chance of receiving specifically an item from that particular table, not any of the other emblems, any of the rune ore, the super stores, the rune bars, the alchemables, any of those other drops, those are still accessible. This is just a 1 in 2,800 chance of receiving something from the super, like, good portion of the uniques table. And that is just absolutely insane. Now, as a lot of you guys are aware, being skulled in the wilderness is very risky because you can actually get smited out for your +1. And it's not just you can get smited out because you're being careless. Big teams do roam through these rev caves, and big teams will try to smite you out for your +1. So the first thing I would advise you is make sure that you are not full HP. And that sounds weird, but keep your prayer higher than your HP, because this makes you, from what I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but this makes it impossible for you to get smited out with the Ancient Maces or the BGSs or any of that. Basically, just keep your prayer full and keep your HP lower than your prayer. It sounds weird and kind of unorthodox, but I'll put the tweet that I was told about this for reference on the screen, so I trust this guy. He's a very intelligent person. If he says this is true, I'm going to take his word for it. And right now I'm going to actually explore some setups with you guys, because you're probably thinking, well, being skulled, you can't really use good gear, so what am I supposed to use? I'll actually show you guys the difference in some DPS calculators right now, because it might not seem like it, but there are certain things that are still really powerful. Alright, so on your screen now, you're going to be seeing a lot of numbers and a lot of things that might look kind of confusing. So this is Dps Calculator, courtesy of @1_defense on Twitter. Follow him, check out the calculator. It's fantastic, it's free, great guy. So I've been using this for a while. I love this calculator. And as you can see, what this is assuming, first of all, is it's assuming you're using rigor, and it's assuming you're fully range potted. So other than that, though, this is a really standard setup. It's the Salve EI, which will be your +1 when you're skulled, because the Salve EI does have a value, quote value, it's not really priced at this, but of roughly 200k. So that shouldn't be a problem, as well as if you're dropping all your stuff in your looting bag. Even if you have dragon legs, they shouldn't protect over a Salve EI. They might, but from what I just looked at in the death screen, it has roughly a value of 200k, and dragon legs shouldn't surpass that amount, so should be fine there. But in the bottom left is where you want to look for the DPS. As you can see, 5.29, basically 5.3 DPS. The Ava's Assembler, as opposed to the Accumulator, really doesn't change it much, and you shouldn't really be worried about losing some rune arrows, because 1, they're super cheap if you're a main, and 2, if you are an Iron Man, raids literally shits them out, so it's not a big deal. This is also just a regular MSB, not an MSBI, because that's going to be like an extra 30 to 50k every trip if you're a main, and if you're an Iron, it's not worth the bounty points. This is probably the setup that I would recommend, and I'm going to guess this is going to be the best setup. Alright, the next setup you see on your screen now is this is going to be a pretty standard main setup, I imagine. It'll be okay for anti-PKing as well if you want to rock this. You would be using just a salve, once again, regular salve this time, so you don't need the EI for melee, so you can risk those. They're super fast to get since the changes they made around the time TOB came out. You don't want to take the Defender, because if you're Scald, you're going to be risking it, and the Needs Helm, they're pretty cheap, so I figured it's not a big deal to put that on there. I wouldn't recommend using this as an Iron, because it's going to use up a lot of tent charges, but as you can see, it's already less DPS than the MSB setup. So this one, it might be more favorable for anti-PKing, but it's really not very good in terms of DPS differences. I feel like it's more of a risk. You have to risk more when you get smited out too, I guess, because a tentacle is worth a little bit of money, and then you lose the whip attached to it as well. Kind of touching on the previous one, this is another setup using the Dragon Scimitar instead, and as you can see, noticeably worse, less than 4 DPS, which is just, in my opinion, that's quite bad. Now, a lot of you guys are wondering, well, sure, these setups might seem like cost-effective and whatnot, but why are they better than the crossbow? To save you guys the ramble that I originally had there, my calculator for some reason doesn't have a crossbow on it, which kind of sucks, but I'll show you guys Blowpipe Dragon Darts, which is probably the most comparable thing, and show you guys there's no way anything can be 3 times more DPS than an MSB. Alright, now here is the last thing. Like I said, I'm just going to show you guys Blowpipe Dragon Darts. Now, I'm pretty sure this is actually better than a crossbow, but even if crossbow is slightly better than this, there's absolutely no way that it could be 3 times better than the MSB setup that I showed you guys earlier. Now, most people use Rune Darts, which is actually about 8.6 DPS in comparison to 9.2, but we're using Dragon's Darts just for the sake of proving a point. As you can see, this setup is still substantially worse overall, because you would have to have over 3 times the DPS using this setup in order to be getting the same amount of rare drops as you would while being Scald with the MSB setup. So, Scald Revs, way more money. Now, what exactly does this mean for the future of Revs? This is just my opinion at this point, so I'm not guaranteeing that any of this is going to happen, but I'm just saying, a lot of the use of the crossbow does actually come at Revs. Now, people use it for Venenatis. I've heard rumors of people using it at Callisto, and obviously you have things like the Vigorous Chainmace that are used at Vedian. But even despite all of that, I'm pretty sure that these items are probably going to go down, because 1, more people are probably going to be willing to do Revs with crap gear than with good gear in the first place. There are going to be more PKers there, but a lot of the use of these weapons did come at Revs, which means that these did just lose a lot of their usefulness, unless for some reason someone is going to want to go there Scald with a crossbow, but that is just incredibly risky because there are, like I said, big teams that are constantly patrolling there. Now, I'm sure people will do it. If you go Scald with a crossbow or Scald with a Blowpipe Dragon Darts, you are going to be making tons of money, assuming you don't get smited. Now, in case people don't know what happens, you can get speared out and smited from full HP to dead, and like I said before, if your HP is higher than your prayer, you will lose your +1 every time, no matter what. The clans are talented, they have done this a lot. I don't know if I'd really call it talent, but they have practiced this a lot. So this is a reality that you will lose those items if you go there Scald. So I guess this is just a PSA. Do your Rev Scald. Be very careful, obviously. Try not to die. Try not to lose your +1s. And bank frequently. And you also get 89 agility for that freaking shortcut. But with that all being said, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I hope this was informative. I hope it helped you guys. And if it did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Spread the word about this information. I think this is extremely relevant. I think that more people need to know about this now that the information is out there. And I hope that, you guys can make plenty of money, bring in plenty of crossbows and all that stuff into the game, make a bunch of bank, and let me know how that all goes. Have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys later this week for another 99 Slayer in the Wilderness episode.